Want to improve your English without memorizing grammar rules or boring vocabulary lists? The secret is simple storytelling. Every time you listen to a well-written English story, you're training your brain to understand the language naturally. You pick up useful words, expressions, and grammar without even trying. That's exactly what this channel is about. So before we begin, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new English learning adventure. These stories are built for beginners, but they'll make you feel like a native speaker over time. Let's jump into today's story. One girl, one city, one taxi ride, or was it two? Nora had always believed she had a good sense of direction. She was the kind of person who preferred walking over using maps. In most cities, she could find her way after just one day. But Istanbul was different. It was beautiful, mysterious, and unpredictable. She arrived early one morning, just as the sun was climbing over the Bosphorus. The air smelled of sea salt and roasted chestnuts. Ships moved slowly across the water, and narrow streets curved around hills like threads in a woven carpet. Nora was staying in a small apartment near Galata Tower. She had chosen the location because it was close to everything, but close in Istanbul didn't mean easy to find. Still, she was excited. After a quick breakfast of bread and olives, she stepped outside to explore. The city was waking up. Markets opened. Street cats stretched. The sound of prayer drifted across the rooftops. She didn't have a plan, only a list of things she hoped to see. The Blue Mosque, the Grand Bazaar, the Cistern, and a rooftop cafe with a perfect view of the Hagia Sophia. She walked for hours. Nora loved the energy, the smells, the layers of history in every stone. She visited old churches, quiet gardens, and lively squares. By early afternoon, she was far from her apartment and her legs were tired. She decided to take a taxi. A yellow cab stopped near a tea shop. The driver smiled and pointed to the back seat. Nora gave him the address, and the taxi moved forward, disappearing into the slow waves of traffic. The ride was long. Istanbul traffic had its own rhythm, sometimes fast, sometimes not moving at all. But Nora didn't mind. She watched people selling flowers on the sidewalk, old men playing backgammon, and children chasing pigeons. After some time, the driver stopped in front of a familiar stone building. Nora stepped out, paid the fare, and walked up the street toward what she thought was her apartment. But something was wrong. The street looked similar, but the details were off. The signs were different. The cafe on the corner didn't have her usual waiter. The cat sitting on the steps wasn't the same one from the morning. Still, everything looked close enough. She turned down another street, then another. She tried her phone, but the internet signal was weak. She opened her map app, but it spun in circles. Her phone battery dropped lower and lower. She sighed. Then, just ahead, she saw another yellow taxi parked beside a fountain. The driver waved, and for a moment, she thought she recognized him. Same cap, same smile, same car. He opened the door, and she got in again. She gave him the same address. The taxi turned down streets that felt even less familiar. After a while, it stopped again, this time in front of a different building with an almost identical doorway. Nora got out, confused. She had a strange feeling. She looked at the driver and realized it was definitely the same man. She had just paid the same driver for the same trip twice. But now she wasn't where she started, and she wasn't where she was going either. Before she could ask anything, the driver waved and drove off. Nora stood still. The street was quiet. The air was cooler now. Somewhere in the distance, a call to prayer echoed through the city. She checked her phone again. Dead. She laughed softly. Then she took a deep breath and started walking again. She passed a woman selling sesame bread, a boy feeding cats, a man carving soap in the shape of mosques. Everything felt like a dream, real but also floating. As she turned a corner, she found herself in a small square she didn't recognize. In the center was a tiny antique shop with gold lettering on the window. Something pulled her toward it. Inside, the air was warm and heavy with the scent of old books and wood polish. Shelves were filled with maps, clocks, and silver coins. On the back wall, there hung a giant map of Istanbul, hand-drawn and full of winding lines. She stared at it, and there, marked in red ink, was a tiny symbol shaped like a tower. It was her tower, Galata Tower. She studied the streets around it on the map. None of them matched her phone's map, but something told her this version was true. She memorized the turns, the curves, the narrow alleyways. Then she left. Outside, the light had shifted. The buildings looked softer, older. It felt like she had stepped into another time. She followed the path from the map in her mind. Left past the clock shop. Right down the cobbled steps. Across the narrow bridge with no railing. And then there it was. Her apartment door. Her street. The cafe. The waiter. The cat on the steps. Everything was back. Nora climbed the stairs and unlocked the door. Inside, her phone buzzed. The battery had returned. Messages appeared. Her location now showed correctly on the screen. She sat down on the couch, kicked off her shoes, and looked out the window. Outside, the lights of Istanbul began to glow. Lamps on minarets, lights on bridges, reflections on water. She thought about the driver, the taxi, the 2 rides, the antique map. Had she been tricked? Maybe, but also maybe not, because sometimes the city played with people. It tested them, and if they passed, if they stayed calm, curious, and open, they found something more important than directions. They found themselves. She opened her notebook and wrote just 5 words. I got lost. I grew. And then she made tea. While Nora was losing her way in Istanbul, you were doing something powerful. You were learning English. Without any boring lessons or memorization, you picked up sentence patterns, time transitions, descriptive expressions, and real-life storytelling structure. That's how language really sticks. Through stories. You didn't just understand the words, you felt them. That's what makes this kind of learning both fun and effective. If you enjoyed this story and want more English adventures like it, do 3 quick things. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. Now it's your turn. Have you ever gotten lost in a city? What did you learn from it? Tell us your story in the comments. Let's share experiences and grow together. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and remember, sometimes the wrong turn takes you exactly where you need to be.